Well, what's interesting is even in that moment when I was making it, I didn't make all these discoveries until afterwards. It was helping me just to make it. Like the act of making this and having an inspiration is, I think, what helped me get out of some of the funk I was in. I wouldn't say it was like immediately afterwards I was like, I'm completely fine now. It took a while for all of that information to settle into my body. And I feel like that's how I am all the time when I feel like I'm slow to processing information about myself. I learn it, and like I feel like I learn it in chunks, and I'll be like, oh, all these like epiphanies. And I started having those after a few months out of making Spore. And so the whole process was wonderful. I mean, it helped me get out of that creative funk, but I wouldn't say that I felt completely at peace with what I had until later.
Welcome to the Dance Maker podcast, presented by Small Plates Choreography Festival. In this series, we engage in inspiring conversations with choreographers from the Small Plates Network whose work has been showcased in our performances. Small Plates Choreography Festival is an artist-centric dance performance platform designed for dance makers at all stages of their choreographic careers. We expertly curate and produce concert dance through an open application process, highlighting distinct, uncommon, and relevant short dance works and performances in several U.S. cities each year. Our goal is to be a platform for dance makers, to amplify their voices and reach, and to create a lively interface between artists and audiences, exploring the creative process and the intent behind each dance. My name is Jennifer Williams, and I am a lifelong dedicated dancer and choreographer with a profound love for movement and self-expression. I earned a Master of Fine Arts in Dance Performance and Choreography from the University of Hawaii at Manoa, along with a Master's in Social Work from Texas State University. My artistic work is driven by a commitment to cultural diversity, human rights, and social justice, which serve as key sources of inspiration for my work. Currently based in Austin, Texas, I serve as the Assistant Director of Small Plates Choreography Festival, Vice President of the Board for the Kathy Dunhammer Dance Company, as well as co-producer for Austin's Dance on Film and a member of the Haven Movement Company. This podcast provides a space for dialogue with dance creators, exploring their inspirations, experiences, methodologies, and the intentions behind their work. We will engage with the choreographers of Small Plates to discuss their passion for dance, their creative approaches, and the paths they have taken in their artistic endeavors to get them to where they are today. To be a dance maker is to be a joy maker, a culture maker, and a meaning maker. Join me as we discover how choreographic work comes to life through the eyes of the artists of Small Plates, and learn where you can engage further with them and with their performances. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dance Maker podcast for Small Plates Choreography Festival. My name is Jennifer Williams. I'm coming to you today from Austin, Texas. And I have the pleasure of bringing on our special guest, Emily Rushing, who also lives here in Austin. Emily is a choreographer that showcased her work Spore in last year's fall show in Austin at Ground Floor Theater. She's here with us today to discuss her creative process, her work from Small Plates, and what her path in dance has been like for her up to this point in time. So without further ado, welcome, Emily. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
Me too. So before we dive into discussing Spore, which I can't wait because it is such a beautiful piece and I have so many questions and I can't wait to hear you explain them all. I'd like to kick this off by talking a little bit about your background. I know you've been in Austin for a long time working with some incredible local artists and producing beautiful work yourself. And you've literally danced all over the city and backyards. in parks and festivals. And I'm sure there are a lot on that list that I'm not talking about. I'd love to hear more about basically what has inspired you to become the choreographer that you are today. And if there are any pivotal moments that have led you to be on the path where you are right now as a choreographer.
Yeah. So, really, my interest in actually making my own work, it took a while because I went to UT, so I was a UT dance artist student, and during that time while I was there, I was also already kind of working with the community. I'd done some stuff with Ballet East and Sharon Marroquin. At that point in my life, I was just like a sponge, just let's go anywhere. If anyone asked me, I was down. And then over time, I was start to feel this desire, this deep desire. I was like, I got to start making my own work, but I was too, I guess the word would be imposter syndrome, of course, when you're at that age. I was around like 25, 26, and I just felt like my calling was to be making my own work, be a choreographer. But I just didn't feel like I had the skills. I'm not sure why, because I had been doing so much. And so then I started small. I would do small shows in parks where I was invited there. And I can't remember the name of this festival, but it was every year at different parks around town. Wow, I just can't remember her name. She's so wonderful. She's moved away from Austin now, but that's kind of where I started. So I was doing more like site specific stuff outside of the theater, just inviting friends of mine to collaborate and make stuff happen. And then that led me into collaborating with Yvonne K. Ruse, who also is a choreographer and dancer. And we started along with Judd Ferris and my husband, Cody. We designed the Seam Project, which basically was we would perform in different backyards. So we would invite artists from around the city, dance artists specifically, some performance artists. We would go to, it was specifically designed so that we could bring art to the neighborhoods so that more people in the community could see art at an affordable price, but also just making more connections outside of just our dance community. So that was really exciting. We had sort of a parameter set where we had a 4x4 stage. So you had to utilize that small space. And then we would do a north show, a south show, an east and west. It was so fun. It was so fun. We involved so many different artists in the community to set short little pieces. And that's kind of from there, just I kept going. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm a choreographer. I think this is what I want to keep doing.
Yeah, I remember Seam Project because I remember one of my friends was dancing in it, and I think it was in an apartment. I remember seeing pictures of it, and I just thought, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love Austin. We will literally dance everywhere and create a show anywhere, and people love it. Like, it's such a community-driven place to live, especially with the arts. So, what has your subject matter with choreography, like, what have you toyed with? Like, what is, like, your favorite thing to use for inspiration with your work?
The inspiration has sometimes been pretty like personal. I have my brother who passed away, so there was a couple pieces of work that I was inspired by him. He was very, very much very close to my heart, but I also just liked creativity and play, and really just taking in the environment, specifically when I was in more like site work, playing with the scene and just improvisation with friends, and just making little games that turn into something. That was always really fun. But yeah, I have both the playful side and then this like very internal exploring some things that I feel like I need to get out. It's been a journey of me learning what my voice is through vulnerability.
I can relate big time. I go through this whole thought process, like, because I see all these pieces in town and all over, and I choreograph from the same inspiration, like what is personal to me in that moment. And I get on to myself. I'm like, well, I can choreograph about other things. And I try, but I always come back to what is going on in turn. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with that. And
Yeah.
It's what's true to us as artists, where, where our work comes from. And I think that's what brings the authenticity to the work, is like, and that's what we see in your work. And so I'm just appreciating you sharing that, because it gives me permission to keep doing that. I don't know. I think as artists, or maybe it's just me, I'm always criticizing myself. Like, we're just being critical. Like, should I do this? Like, I see all these humorous shows here in Austin, and I literally fall out of my chair in every show I go to, because some piece is just, it cracks me up. And I'm like, but I'm not a funny creator. And I try to be. And I'm like, it's just not who I am.
Yeah, same. I know if I try to be funny, it fails.
Well, you pull it off naturally. So you're very lucky.
Thank you.
Because I know you talked about how you do choreograph lighter pieces and then the heavier, more personal stuff. Looking back on your process with both kinds, is there one that is more difficult than the other, or are the processes different in how you choreograph each?
If I'm starting from a place that I don't really know where I'm going with it, so specifically like when I've worked with more vulnerable parts or things that I need to get out, it does feel easier because it's such a place of honesty. I can actually explore it because I have more of not that I have like a vision, but it just allows other avenues for me to explore. And then when I'm obviously, when you're just starting from just like a creativity, playful side, it's just, there's so many options that it kind of I get overwhelmed, and I don't really, my process for that, I think I just play a lot of like improvisational games, and I work with like, sometimes just like writing and being inspired by some journaling. That's actually, I use that for both sides. Yeah, I would say writing is a super helpful part to building work for me.
Do you write about the ideas, or are you just jotting, like stream of consciousness type writing?
Stream of consciousness. Yeah, it's a lot of just like, I'll write some, just basically just journaling whatever's on my mind, and then I'll circle words that stand out to me, whether it's repeated words or themes I'll use, and kind of just be inspired to make a little phrase from that. And then I just kind of go from there.
Oh, I love that. I might try that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been useful for me. So
that's a really amazing idea. Like, very cool tool to extract more ideas. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Well, I know one of the piece that you actually presented to last fall, and the one we're going to talk about today, Spore, was one of the more somber pieces. So I can't wait to dive into that. We are going to watch that real quick, and we'll come back and talk about your feelings after seeing it all this time and what went into that.
Are you enjoying the Dance Maker podcast? Please share it on your social media channels. Like, subscribe, leave a review, do all the things to help us reach more dance makers, dance enthusiasts, and audiences. If you're interested in Small Plates Choreography Festival, there are many ways to get involved with our shows. You can apply to present work. You can support us by coming to one of our performances or watching a live stream. And you can also support us financially. Small Plates is fiscally sponsored by Fractured Atlas, and so your support is tax deductible. Please check our website, smallplatesdance.com, for open applications, links to purchase tickets, and to donate. Be sure to join our email list to receive notices about new podcast episodes, application deadline reminders, and announcements about new shows and events. See you at Small Plates.
Yay! So that was exciting getting to watch that again. How was that for you?
Also exciting for me. It'd been, a few months since I've watched it. And yeah, they're such powerful movers. They're so good.
I saw it during the Small Plate show in the fall, and every time for me, every time I see a dance again, like I see something different or something affects me differently, or it could totally present itself in a new way that it didn't back when it was performed the first time. And I was able to see more of the relationships in this time watching it. And well, first of all, before we get into all of that, if you could explain what is this piece about and what
Yeah.
inspired it?
This is kind of funny. I don't know when this idea was sparked, but I had, for the longest time, anytime I'd see like a nature documentary and you see like plants growing in, that time lapse kind of like fast motion. I think I might have been watching that during COVID. I think there was some nature documentary I saw during the pandemic that stood out to me. And I was like, I really don't like the way that makes me feel. And I can't explain it. But that time lapse is like gross to me. Like it gives me this visceral feeling of just ick. And I was interested in that. And I was like, oh, where is that coming from? Because I don't know a single other person that feels that way. I was like, this is weird. But then I started thinking about it more. And I think the thing maybe that's making me feel uneasy is this idea of rapid change and how, it's like gives you this like jarring feeling. And it because life isn't supposed to look like that. And I don't know, I guess so I was interested in why and wanted to explore it. And then I started during that time that I started making this work. It had been a year since my brother had passed away. And I think I was still dealing with a ton of depression. I was just kind of feeling like I wasn't fully in my body. And I was actually just before that feeling extremely creatively like dead. Like I just wasn't inspired by anything. I honestly wasn't even wanting to take dance class. I wasn't wanting to dance at all. And I think that I was just in a major funk. So then this idea popped into my mind, and it was the first thing that I was actually excited to get into. It was like split decision. I had this thought. I was like, it's time. And I had been taking class with Celeste, Lainey, Katie, and ET, and they'd either come to my class or I've taken class with them in other places. And I just was inspired by all of the way that they move. They just, all four of them are lovely artists and people that I just felt like I could bring in and have a wonderful time working with them. And it was exactly that. It was a easy process. We did what I told you about, the journaling. We wrote down moments where you felt like things were kind of spiraling out of control, or maybe there was a big change in your life, and we wanted to take that little piece from your memory and kind of explore that in solo movement first. But then there was the literal aspect of thinking about plants growing. And so we had a lot of movement that felt like vines coming out from the ground, or like, some of that movement that they did in sync was inspired by just the communication of plants with each other. So there was a lot of like that whole floor phrase that they did on the ground together. I thought of it like a network of like fungus or trees that communicate with each other through the ground.
That's really beautiful. First of all, I can actually relate to your ick with the plant, because I always felt not icky, but there was something creepy about it. There's some creep factor. Like when I saw those videos, and I can still see it's very like I can see it in my brain as you were talking. I'm like, I know exactly what she's talking about. And I don't know why it's creepy.
It makes me feel so uncomfortable. And I don't know why. Like the only word I can think of is like gross for some reason. I'm just like, ugh. It should not look like that.
But how symbolic. And I am so sorry about your brother, and thank you for sharing that. And I think as artists that we have the gift of being able to produce from a painful place. I think that is a huge gift to us as creators. And I'm often grateful for it too. And I'm grateful when I, know other artists do it too. And it comes out in their work. And as I was listening to you, how amazing that you had this ick about the plants, but then you were going through your own ick, period. And then that planted this, no pun intended, planted the seed to produce this work that literally got you out of your depression, out of that phase that you were going through in mourning. And you produced this beautiful piece that, as I was watching it, it looked like there were 3 sections to it. As I was watching it today, and I'd like it if you can explain a little more about what those sections represent.
So that first section definitely was this invoking chaos. So it was like when you're right in the middle of it, of something where your life just feels like a little out of control, and you're just searching, and it feels like you're kind of changing directions a lot to find the right path. So there was a lot of of them. There's a lot of passing side to side on the stage of this kind of this constant changing of direction and not really going anywhere is kind of how it felt too. So that first section was just chaos. And then moving into that second part on the floor, to me, it was kind of getting in this place of acceptance of finally seeing things maybe in a little bit of a different light, and knowing that you have a community with you. And so that whole section was in sync for the most part. Like they all moved together and felt like they were, even though, and that I had an intention there also that they were not looking at each other for a lot of it. They stayed in this kind of internal sort of self-reflective state as they're moving until the duet section. But yeah, I felt like it was this standing alone, but still with others, if that makes sense. Like I'm figuring it out. I'm accepting that there are people here that support me, but I'm still like trying to figure out what this landscape is. And then the duet section is kind of this moment of like, I guess you could call it a resolution. I didn't really feel like it resolved completely, but this moment of like, finding connection with each other. And there was like some tenderness there, kind of catching each other and just relaying information back to each other with like that little whipping motion with the arms. And then, so the end was them, I think, just coming to this resolution of the acceptance has fully set in, and also knowing that this change leads to a new version of yourself. So whatever that version is now exactly where you need to be. Just, this is where I'm supposed to be right now, whether it's perfect, it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. So
that was beautiful and very timely. Do you think that piece helped you get out of where you were before you created it? Like, do you feel differently now that you created that piece?
Well, what's interesting is even in that moment when I was making it, I didn't make all these discoveries until afterwards. Like it was helping me just to make it. Like the act of making this and having an inspiration is, I think, what helped me get out of some of the funk I was in. I wouldn't say it was like immediately afterwards I was like, I'm completely fine now. It took a while for all of that information to settle into my body. And I feel like that's how I am all the time when I feel like I'm slow to processing information about myself. I learn it, and like I feel like I learn it in chunks, and I'll be like, oh, all these like epiphanies. And I started having those after a few months out of making Spore. And so the whole process was wonderful. I mean, it helped me get out of that creative funk, but I wouldn't say that I felt completely at peace with what I had until later.
It's so I can relate. At the end of January, I started creating work for the first time since my daughter was born. I started creating in January, and I was so excited. I had all these inspirations. I had a solo and a duet. And then the end of January happened. I had all this upheaval in my personal life and with my job. I'm a federal employee, and just with, I don't mean to bring politics into it, but just with the state of things. And all of a sudden, and my other friend is an artist. She paints, and we both at the same time just shut down. Like, and I could not create. Like, I had not one creative bone in my body. Like, getting to dance was just, I just forced myself to go just so I could keep moving. But I was so depressed because I was like, oh my God, none of my ideas literally died. Like, I can't. I went to the studio and I just literally sat there for an hour in the studio and was like, I feel like, okay, I lost it. And it was this, but it came back again about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I was so relieved. But I just, on a very small scale, can relate to, your story about what you were going through before Spore. And I just wanted to share that because you're not alone. But again, not comparing at all.
Oh, no, thank you for sharing that.
But it's just interesting, the processes we go through and like how, the world affects us on so many levels as artists and in our work.
And sometimes you don't even realize, like, which is crazy. It's like, yeah, you're depressed because your brother died. Like, no wonder you're feeling, but for whatever reason, I was like, oh, I guess like, I just don't like dancing right now. Like,
yeah.
It's, it's so weird that you're, I don't know, that you don't know about something until you're kind of on your way out of it.
When the first time I came to dance after my divorce in 2018, it was September 2018. I hadn't been in a dance studio since 2011. And I walked in and I just started. Kathy was in the middle of the studio. I was the only one there. And I just literally set my foot in the studio and just started sobbing. And she's like, come here. And I'm like, I've been traumatized. Like, we laugh about it now, but I remember doing a grand plie in second, and I just lost it in class one day. And I was like,
oh, yeah.
This plie, I felt like opened up my entire insides. Like,
well, and it's interesting that you said the big grand plie, because, like our hips hold emotion. That's what they say is so maybe you released something in that movement also.
Yeah, I love the grand plie. I love the second grand plie, just because it feels just like, I don't know, I'm just letting it all out. But that just reminded me, it's just, I don't know, we're so lucky that we get to heal through creating and help others with our work. And please don't ever quit choreographing.
I won't. I'm actually, Carissa and I are working on an evening length show coming up in the fall. So we will be, there'll be more stuff.
Yay! I had this thought over the weekend. I'm like, they need to tour together and just do duets. Like the whole show be a duet. Your chemistry on stage and the work you do is so, it's just amazing. It's so creative and it's just so good. I love it.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's so sweet of you.
Yeah, I'll be looking out for that show in the fall.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a pleasure. I enjoy your work. I enjoy your performing, and I just can't wait to see more of what you do in the future.
Thank you so much. It was so great chatting with you. I loved it.
I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Dance Maker podcast, sponsored by Small Plates Choreography Festival. Be sure to support this podcast by liking, subscribing, and sharing with a friend or on your social media channels, or by leaving us a review. That really helps us expand our reach. To learn more about Small Plates Choreography Festival, please visit our website, www.smallplatesdance.com, where you can apply to be one of our performances. Be sure to also sign up for our newsletter and be the first to hear about new shows, get reminders about application deadlines, and of course, we will also let you know each time a new podcast episode drops. We rely on your financial support. If you would like to support Small Plates with a tax-deductible donation, please donate through our fiscal sponsor, Fractured Atlas. The link to donate can be found on our website and in the show notes for this podcast. Until next time, fellow dance makers, happy creating.